Hello, I'm Anawultus, and sometimes I see a hot take, so hot that I just cannot resist responding to it. And this is the case here with Tim Pool. On June 25th, 2020, Tim Pool put out a video where when the businesses inside of a Chaz or Chop area put together a lawsuit and sued the city for abandoning them, for being negligent of its duties. What Tim Pool does, you ready for this? What Tim Pool does is he victim blames them. He calls them cowards, okay, for not standing up. Now, here's my problem with that. My problem with that is that these people were long suffering, they were patient, they were gentle. Perhaps these people are not violent people in themselves, the business owners here, and they exhibited all of these classic virtues. And then when the police refuses to do its job because of the mayor or whoever else may be involved in the government of Seattle, they put together a lawsuit against the city. And then Tim Pool calls them cowards. Now, let me say this here. I don't think it's cowardly to be concerned for your own safety. That's natural, okay? I wouldn't expect anyone to sacrifice their own lives for just simply any reason whatsoever where they might be in danger. I think it should not be considered cowardly to be concerned for your own safety. Also, it should not be considered cowardly to want to do things through the legal process and to want to hold your governmental representatives and your governmental armed forces accountable. Also, I do not think that it should be considered cowardly to be patient in a time of danger and to try to make things work when things are going bad. I don't think that's cowardly. Now, what is cowardly is the mayor, okay, when the mayor has a responsibility to uphold the monopoly of violence that the city has in its territory, and the mayor chooses to abandon a police precinct. And Tim Pool says, well, it's the protesters that were doing this. It's the protesters that barricaded it off. Well, it's the mayor, okay, and other officials who chose to abandon the police precinct, to abandon the area, and to sacrifice their monopoly of violence over a region. And now what has happened is you now have an occupying force that is undermining the territorial integrity of the United States of America, which can be considered an act of war or an act that justifies the escalation to lethal force. And the police won't do it. And the governor won't do it. And the president, Trump, he also won't do it. Disgraces all of them. But Tim Pool, who does Tim Pool blame here? Tim Pool goes after the businesses who have been affected of this, the businesses who do not have a responsibility to uphold the order because it's the police's job to do that. It's the police's job. We live in a civilization. We have a division of labor, which means that we don't all have to be policemen. It means that we have professionals, trained professionals, that it is their duty to do that, and it is the mayor's duty as representatives of those businessmen to protect them, or to at least work to secure control of the town that is in the jurisdiction of the mayor. But that's not happening. So those individuals, in their gentleness, in their long suffering, and in their patience, have decided to put together a lawsuit against the city. Because what would Tim Pool do? Would Tim Pool go after conscientious objectors, saying that you're cowards for not taking arms to protect your country? Is that what Tim Pool would do? I don't know. Okay? And I'm not saying he would do that. Let me be very clear on that. I'm not trying to put words into Tim Pool's mouth. What I am saying is that Tim Pool has an unreasonable standard of courage. Okay? Tim Pool would rather these individuals become vigilantes and break the law to uphold a sort of Wild West control of the area, as opposed to them going through the legal processes that we have in our society. So I will say that it is, of course, a great fault upon the protesters and the occupiers, who I think should all be charged with insurrection. And I also think that the penalty for insurrection should be raised to the death penalty. But it also is a fault upon the city for not carrying out its responsibility. At the same time, though, I don't think it's the fault, okay, of any of the businesses who do not have a legal responsibility to defend the territory. Why? Because it's somebody else's responsibility already. Okay? I think it's unreasonable to demand that people put their own lives at risk when it is not their responsibility to do so. That is very unreasonable. But, of course, I don't know how familiar Tim Pool is with the philosophy of what happens when there's an occupying force in your territory. Because people want to live. People want to see tomorrow. Most people aren't going to sacrifice themselves in order to try to accomplish something that then leaves their families without those people. A lot of these people are trying to support families. Some of these people might not be armed. They might not have a weapon. They might not be an aggressive type of person that would be aggressive, as that one man was who started flipping tables and grabbing the barricades. And I don't blame them for not taking action when the region is occupied by armed militants at the border. There's pictures. We know that they're there. People with rifles, handguns, trying to uphold their so-called order in the area. So I don't think that people should be blamed when they were holding out, hoping that either the mayor or the governor or the president or the county would do something. But now that all of those have failed them, I think it's well within their right to sue. And I don't think it's cowardly of them to take that approach. And you might say, well, they're explicitly saying that they're not, that their lawsuit is not a criticism against the Chaz or CHOP. Now, I will also point out that the statement that Tim Pool put forward also does not say that they are in support of the statement that Chaz and CHOP are trying to make. So when Tim Pool says, oh, they're not opposing it, and then he characterizes it as if they're on the same side on the issue, and then they're being cowardly and acting entitled, because they are entitled. Let me just say, they are entitled to protections as citizens, which is what the basis of the lawsuit is. Okay? When Tim Pool goes and victim blames them on that, you have to understand that if they were complaining about Chaz and Chop, they would be suing Chaz and Chop. Okay? But, of course, it's the government's job to go after Chaz and Chop. So what they're doing is they're trying to hold their government to account for failing them when the government should have been there, when the government could have been there. Some people say, well, when all chaos breaks out, there's the police has no responsibility to protect you, and people like to say that, but okay, when the police could do something and they should do something and they don't do something, then there certainly is a problem. Now, of course, I understand that the police were following orders and that the higher-ups are really the ones at fault here. Now, of course, Tim Pool blames these individuals, saying, well, they should have been out there, they should have said things. When Tim Pool was the one earlier saying, well, this looks like a big LARP to me, this looks like a big block party. And so now when the damage is done, when people are actually coming out, and when they're saying, now is the time that we're going to do something about this, Tim Pool disparages them and says, why didn't you do something sooner? Well, it takes time to set up lawsuits, okay? Class action lawsuits. It takes time for that. Also, this event is very recent. I don't know if people have been looking at the time scale of this. This event is very recent. It's not as if this has been going on for months and now people are finally coming out. It's not as if there is a statute of limitations that we're at risk at coming across here. This is a very recent event, and now and in that recent time, they were probably expecting that the government would do something, and now that the government hasn't done something, then they're holding their government accountable. Because that is what we can do in this country. That is what one of the benefits of living in the United States of America is. It's that there is a legal process to hold the government accountable when the government is grossly negligent in its duties. But then Tim Pool, very angrily, I might add, goes and calls these people that are being good citizens, that aren't doing anything at all in this particular situation anyway, that I could say I could fault them for, and Tim Pool goes and blames the victim. But anyway, it might have been in the heat of a moment that Tim Pool said these things, so no harsh heat on Tim Pool, olive branches out to everyone. But I just was so incensed when I heard this hot take that I needed to put out my own response as a catharsis in a way, but also to examine these issues a bit deeper. So anyway, thank you all for watching, and please leave a comment, share the video. That would certainly help. Anawiltus over and out.